Hi, welcome back to this tutorial series on Introduction to MATLAB. MATLAB is basically matrix laboratory which deals with the vectors and matrices. Matrices are basic element of the MATLAB environment. Matrix is a 2D array consisting of many number of rows and columns. In the last tutorial, we discussed about some special cases of matrix which we called as the column vectors and row vectors. In this tutorial, I am going to discuss about how to create a matrix into the MATLAB. Let's get started. Before we start creating matrices into the MATLAB, let's look at a simple matrix A which I have created here. So I have created a matrix A which contains the elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I have just written any random numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So this matrix over here is basically of order 3 cross 3. The first number over here represent how many rows we have. So we have 3 rows. So this 3 is representing the number of rows we have, and this 3, the second one, is representing how many columns or number of columns we have in the matrix. So this matrix basically has 3 cross 3, means 3 rows and 3 columns. If you look at total number of elements, so it has basically 9 elements into the matrix. Now we look at this direction. So if you see these elements 1, 2, 3 are placed in a single row, and they are placed in different columns. So this is my first row. So I have written is as a row 1, that means R1. I am representing row with the R. Then the next row is R2 which contains element 4, 5, 6. Similarly, the third row is 7, 8, 9 containing these elements. In the vertical direction, if you move, then these are called the columns. So if you see 1, 4 and 7, so they are placed in a first column. Similarly, we have second column if we move to the right, and similarly we have another third column. So this same matrix we are going to create into the MATLAB. So let's move back to the MATLAB. What I'm going to do is I have changed the font size. So if you want to change the font size, you can go to the environment section and click on the preference, go to the fonts, and I am going here desktop code font, and you can select 14 or whatever size you like. So let's stick to the 14. Now I'm going to create a matrix A which contains the 9 elements which are the simple natural number 1 to 9. So to do that, I am going to create a variable A. Then we are going to write A, then I am going to press equal to sign, and to supply the number of elements we are going to use this square bracket. If you have watched my last tutorial, you can go and watch there, because I have discussed there whenever we are supplying the list of numbers, then we have to put them into this square brackets. So because this time we want to create a matrix, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the first row which contains element 1, 2, 3. So to write element into a row format, what we can do is we can either use a comma or we can use a space between these numbers. So this is my first row, but now I want to move to the next row, so I'm going to use a semicolon after these numbers. Now I am going to supply 4, 5, 6. This is again into row, so I am going to place them using a comma or space button between these. So I am going to write 4, 5, or you can use mix of that, or you can use a single thing, comma or comma, to write them into a single row. Then to move to the next row, we have to use semicolon. Then I am going to supply this another number 7, 8, 9. Now we have written. So this one is going to be created first column, then second column and third column, and then we move to the next row. If I press an enter key over here, you will see a matrix A is created which contains elements 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So all the elements that we saw in this matrix over here, the same element we have created into the MATLAB command window. So the same matrix you can access in the workspace. Double click on the A, and a window with the variable name will pop up, and you can see that same number of elements that we supplied in the square bracket are placed over here. So you can use the workspace to access the variable and the value stored in it. Over at the top is the variable tab is created, and you can see in the selection menu rows and columns are given. So if you move from one element to another element, the rows and columns number will change. So if I select over this location 5, then you will see I am in the second row and second column. You can also access these location from here as well. So this is second row and this is second column. So this is how we can create a simple matrix into the MATLAB with supplying the list of number into it. Let's create some another value. So let's suppose I want to create 4 rows and 2 columns, let's suppose. So for 2 columns, so I'm going to press 1, then I'm going to supply 2. So after that 2 columns has been completed. Now we move to the next row. So I'm going to use semicolon. So whenever you want to move to the next row, use semicolon. So 3, 4, then I'm going to use semicolon, then 5, 6, then I'm going to use semicolon, and then I'm going to use 7, 8, and then I'm going to close the bracket and press an enter key. So you will see that we have created 4 rows. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. So there are 4 rows and we have only 2 columns. So this is the way you can create the matrix into the MATLAB. But because we use the MATLAB as a tool to solve the matrices and vectors which are bigger in sizes, so we have to look at some special matrices. So we are going to create those special matrices. So first one I'm going to discuss is, let's suppose I want to create a matrix A, which, or any, let's suppose name it as a variable C, and I'm going to store that matrix into the variable C. So let's suppose matrix C is a matrix that contain all the values as a 1. So let's suppose every element is 1. So let's suppose if I want to create it as by using the notation we have done till now. So let's suppose 1, 1, 1, 1. Let's suppose I want 4 columns, and I'm going to separate it by the next row. Then I'm going to display again 1, 1, 1. So you see it take a lot of time. Let's suppose I have 10 rows and 10 columns. So I'm going to write these individual number 1, 1, 1 so many times. So instead of that, we can do that thing by using some special command. I'm going to use once, which is a built-in command of the MATLAB. Once means create all the element with the value of 1. Now I want to supply how many rows and columns I want. As we saw here in this matrix, the first one is the number of rows and second number. If you see here, the first one is the number of rows and second one is the number of columns. So same order is also applicable in the MATLAB. So I'm going to supply how many rows we want. Let's suppose I want 4 rows and 3 columns. So I'm going to use this d is equal to 1's command, which is built-in function, and because it is built-in function, we have to use this index bracket. Whenever we calling a function, we use always this index bracket, and then I'm going to supply how many rows and columns I want. Now I'm going to press an enter key to issue a command to the MATLAB. You will see the matrix D is created, which contains all the entries with 1. Similarly, we can create a matrix E which contains all the zeros. Let's suppose I want to create 4 columns, 3 rows, 4 rows, 4 rows. The first one is the rows and second one is the column. So 4 rows, 3 columns, and which contains all the elements to be zeros. So I use this function which is called as zeros. Then we have something called an identity matrix. So let's suppose the identity matrix, I'm naming it as I. You can name it any variable A. So to create the identity matrix, I'm going to use this command of I, and let's suppose I want 4 cross 4. So if I press an enter key, the 4 rows or 4 columns of identity matrix is going to be created. So I've created the identity matrix which contains main diagonal as unity and all other to be 0. Then there is some other command. Let's suppose I want to create a matrix F, and then there is something called magic command, and let's suppose I want 5 rows or 5 columns. So you see a matrix F is created using this magic command, and I've supplied only a single number. That means it will contain equal number of rows and equal number of columns. So whenever we supply only single number to these functions, then it is going to take it as by default equal number of rows and equal number of columns. Now why we calling it as a magic? So to analyze that, let's use other command available to the MATLAB, which is sum. So what I'm going to do is I'm calling this function sum, and I'm supplying the matrix F now. And if I press an enter key, you will see that it gives a vector which is basically row vector, if you remember, because we have only single row. So it's a row vector which contains all the element with 65. What this command is actually doing, the sum command is basically used to calculate the sum along the rows or columns. By default it calculates the sum along the column direction, so it will add all the element present in the single column. So in this first column it will sum these 17, 23, 4, 10 and 11, and it will give me the 65. Similarly 24, 5, 6, 12, 18 will getting summed and it will give me 65. If you want to do the calculation in different directions, so what I'm going to do is I will supply this matrix F, and then I'm going to use a second argument which is 2. So that means it will take this direction, it will take this direction. So it will sum these 17, 24, 1, 8 and 15. If I press an enter key, you will see that it give me a column vector now. So it's now adding in this single row, and then it will add this row, and this will add this, and the next one and next one. So these values that we are supplying into this functions is called as arguments. We will discuss about all these arguments when we will be defining our own function script files. So till now you just remember it that these are called the arguments. Let's call the magic function now, and let's apply 2 arguments to it. So we will see what happens to it. So I'm supplying you will see I'm supplying 4 and 4, and if I press an enter key, it will throw an error, says error using magic, and it says too many input arguments. So that means the magic function that is created in the MATLAB take only one argument. So if I use magic 4 only, and you will see the result is displayed by the MATLAB with no error. So that means it will take only single argument over here. So how you know that a particular function takes a single argument or not? So if I write magic and press this index bracket, you will see after a 4 or 5 seconds a help will pop up over here, and you will see that only single number is displayed here. So that means it will take only single argument, right? So you have to supply only single argument to it. It is designed in this manner. If you supply more than one argument, it is going to throw an error. And to know about more, you can use help command. So if I'm going to use help, now I'm going to supply the term for which I want help. Let's suppose I want the help for magic. So I'm going to write help, and then I'm going to supply magic, and you will see that help for magic is appeared. So magic square. One more thing is that when we have equal number of rows as equal to the columns, so if we have rows and columns in equal number, we called it as a square matrix. So you will see here that it takes a single argument, is an n by n matrix constructed from the integer 1 through n square with equal row, column and diagonal sums. Produce valid magic square for all n greater than 0 except n equal to 2. Now you can access many other available matrices operations and different other type of special matrices by using this command help, and then I'm going to use elmat. If you remember in the previous tutorials, we also use this help el function command to access the mathematical functions available into the MATLAB, and this command over here is the second command that you can use for matrices, special matrices available that is available into the MATLAB. So if I press an enter key over here, so you will see that all the available commands that is available into the MATLAB library is shown by this help elmat. So elementary matrices and matrix manipulations. So these are the elementary matrices, that means zeros we used, I used and ones used. So these are the elementary matrices. So we can use these built-in commands to create our own vectors or matrices. Right? So these zeros and ones you can use for the vectors as well, because we know that vectors are just special case of matrices. Then there is some other commands like linspace, logspace, that we will see in the next tutorial how we can use this linspace and logspace. You can also try out these commands available here. I've told you how to access the help for these values, and you can start creating your own matrices and vectors. Then this basic array information is there. So we are going to use these commands as well, size, length and all that. So size basically means size of an array. If you want to know what is the size of an array, you can use this size. Length of a vector, you can use this to find out the length of vector. You can also access number of dimensions, the number of elements we can access. So matrix that we created is basically the two-dimensional matrix. So that's the number of dimensions, and some other operations is also there. So we are going to see some of these options that is available. You can also try out these options available here. So this was all about today's tutorial about how to create a matrix and how to use the special matrices available into the MATLAB. In the next tutorial we are going to discuss more about different matrices and vectors operations on it. I hope you like this tutorial. Please like, share and subscribe. I will see you in the next tutorial. Thank you very much.